Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Walk and Talk Dog Training Podcast. Or, hello and welcome for the very first time. If you're new, come on in, get comfy. This is where we talk all things dog for 20 minutes or so on a topic or theme that I hope will be helpful to many of you. If not, you can always send it along to a friend, who you think it might be useful to. Sharing is caring. Anyway, this week's topic, in case you're wondering whether it's going to be useful to you or not, I hope at least a few of you will find very helpful indeed. But I've actually selected it from the responses I received on Instagram when I put out a little Instagram story about a month ago, I think, asking you guys to let me know what topics would you like to hear more about. What problems are you struggling with? What areas of dog training and behavior are you interested in or intrigued by and would just like to explore? And I would like to say, before we dive into it, thank you very much to everyone who responded to that Instagram story. I have a really nice long list now, and there were quite a few topics that were suggested by multiple people, which was really useful to me because I know that it's something that's obviously a real issue if multiple people are pinging it in, and that it's obviously a problem that people are maybe struggling to resolve or struggling to get helpful guidance on elsewhere. And so we may as well do it together here. If you're listening now and thinking, well, I didn't see that Instagram story, I want to submit a question or a topic for the podcast, you only have to go and follow me on Instagram and you can do just that. I'm at Listen Dog Training, and you will see if you do come over to the gram, I ask for input fairly regularly. So there's always an opportunity to ping a question my way if there's something you want to hear more about. Although on that note, I would just like to say, if you are someone who has ever DM'd me a training question out of the blue or something, a message or anything like that on Instagram, a comment, whatever, please don't be put out if I have not replied. Things are getting a little bit hectic on Instagram now, and I really do get a ridiculous number of DMs and messages on a daily basis of people asking me for answers to questions or solutions to problems or advice on something that their dog is doing that honestly, as much as I would love to, I truly cannot possibly keep on top of answering every single one. If I ever do happen to have a window of time that I can commit to like washing through a few replies, I will. I do it regularly. I do it multiple times a week. But truly, my inbox is becoming more and more like the queue at Primark on a Boxing Day. It's literally carnage. And even if I see a message and I'm like, oh, yeah, I know exactly what to say to that. I want to reply to that. And then I'm busy and then I come back to it. It will just get lost down the list when I come back and I can't stay on top of it all the time. So I try to give you guys the opportunity wherever I possibly can with question boxes in my stories and stuff like that, just so you can tell me your struggles so I can talk about them here or film a tutorial for it in the future or try and answer it, that way. But yeah, just wanted to throw that out there. I'm really sorry if you have ever sent a message and you feel like I've just ignored it. It's not intentional. It's just, it's a bit wild and I do my best. So anyway, on that note, with that side, right? What is it we are actually talking about today? Well, it is a topic from my Instagram requests pile, and it is that coveted, calm, relaxed evening that so many of us want to experience with our dogs. And yet I think so many owners, it would seem from the comments I'm receiving, struggle to achieve. You know that moment like at the end of your busy, crazy work day and it's the evening and everything's done and you're tired and you finally just sit down with a cup of tea, or maybe you've just made dinner, you're going to sit down, the kids are winding down, everybody's ready for that peaceful, cozy part of the day so you can just wind down and relax. Except now your dog is like zooming around the living room, or they're just barking for attention, or they're chewing something they shouldn't. They're pacing around in front of you because they are like seemingly ramped up. They just can't seem to switch off. Well, if that sounds familiar to you, this episode is for you, because today we're diving deep into how to set ourselves and our dogs up for a calm, settled, chilled out evening at home, one that actually feels restorative for everyone. That's you, your family, and your dog. And I want to go deeper than the usual, like make sure your dog gets enough daily exercise advice that you've definitely already heard, or you've read it online, or you've been told it by your neighbor. Because yes, dogs need exercise. We know this. But calmness isn't all about wearing your dog out physically. It's about meeting their whole range of needs throughout the day in a way that allows their nervous system to truly settle. So, in this episode, we'll unpack what a fulfilling day really looks like for a dog, how we can use training, play, structure, and even just our home environment generally to help them decompress. And I'll be sharing some neuroscience tidbits and practical tools to help you create that magical evening calm that you are craving. So, let's start with a bit of context because understanding the why always gives us better control, in my opinion, over the what. So, why does evening hyperactivity happen? Well, dogs, like humans, I'm sure you've heard of this before with conversations about screen time and blue light and all of that jazz. Dogs have circadian rhythms, biological patterns that affect when they are naturally more awake and alert or naturally more restful. And for many dogs, especially younger ones like teenage dogs or certain breeds, evenings can actually be a natural peak in arousal levels, which makes sense when you think about it, right? Because in the wild, dusk was a prime time for hunting and activity. Their bodies are literally wired to be alert and responsive around about that time of day. Their eyes are actually optimized to see best in that low level of light that naturally occurs at dusk. It's what they're built for. So when we expect them to just automatically hit the snooze button and chill the heck out at 7 p.m. after a day of like already they've had, scattered naps, inconsistent stimulation, maybe even some stress, it's no wonder that some dogs are just bouncing off the walls instead. And on top of that, we have to consider the nervous system itself because a dog who has been slightly on edge all day, maybe from loud noises, visitors, overstimulation on walks, or just a general lack of structure, will accumulate what we call residual stress hormones. I know I've talked about this before, but cortisol and adrenaline don't just come in all guns blazing and then just like dissipate instantly after the event. They build up and they can actually take up to 48 hours for those levels to return to baseline. So when you get that evening witching hour, as I like to call it, um, it's often the nervous system saying, I'm overloaded, I'm pumped up, and I don't know how to bring it all down again. But the good news is calmness is absolutely something we can teach, we can shape, and we can create. We just have to work with our dog's biology, not against it. So, let's talk about needs and what a fulfilling day actually looks like because dogs, just like us, have a spectrum of needs. And if those needs aren't being met in balance, calmness in the evening becomes almost impossible. When I say a fulfilling day, by the way, I'm talking about holistic fulfillment. So, meeting the dog's physical, mental, emotional, and social needs, which is not the same thing as just filling their day with constant activity. And that's sometimes one of the biggest mistakes I see owners make, trying to fix evening hyperactivity by just increasing stimulation. More walks, more play, more enrichment, more stuff. But what we really need to create is a balance between stimulation and decompression. So a Labrador, right, might need a solid outlet for their retrieving and their carrying instincts. A collie, they need to use their brain and their body together, problem solving, using that incredible focus that they have, really directing it at a task. A spaniel might crave scent work, exploration, that kind of stuff. A greyhound may need far less physical exercise, but far more predictability and routine and comfort and all of that kind of stuff. Even gender can play a role in your dog's needs to an extent because bitches can be more sensitive to environmental changes during hormonal shifts in their cycle if they're not spayed, and males might need more help with emotional regulation, shall we call it, during adolescence. In my experience, the latter is certainly true. Just coming out the other side of adolescence with young Albie, and it's a project. And of course, your schedule matters too. If you work full time, your dog's day may well involve long stretches of rest, followed by sudden bursts of um, like high octane activity, maybe then followed by just another 4 hours alone. If you're like nipping home and then you're using your lunch break for like a game of back to back fetch because you're trying to cram in all the exercise they need in that hour. And that can be quite jarring to the nervous system. So we need to smooth out those peaks and troughs with gentler, more thoughtful engagement. So let's look at structuring the day to set up that evening that we want. And it helps to think of your dog's day like a wave, right? Gentle rises of activity followed by gentle drops of rest. It's a calm day at the beach, okay? Because what we don't want is just a flat line of boredom all day, then followed by a huge surge of energy at night. So a well balanced rhythm, it might look something like this, okay? So it starts with a really calm morning routine. There's not a chaotic rush out of the door, all of that frenetic energy. We don't want that. Maybe a few minutes of some simple engagement games or training just to get the brain ticking, just to get something happening. Then go for a walk. That's less about mileage and more about meaning. So, sniffing, exploring, slow decompression, that kind of stuff. Don't just like pound the pavements because you've got to do a certain number of kilometers before you go off to work. Obviously, some solo rest time during the day is expected because we've got stuff to do. And it's actually important as well, especially for those dogs who are always on. Our dogs are supposed to spend a lot of time asleep during the day. They need those naps, okay? That helps them to regulate just as much as the other stuff does. And then late in the afternoon, early evening, whenever you get home from work, there's a window of time for some structured play or some training, maybe a training walk, some kind of activity like that. And that pre evening slot is really crucial. Think of it as like their decompression workout. It's an opportunity to release any residual energy, any stress from the day that they've had before you transition into that calm evening mode. And it could be 10 minutes of shaping or trick training, maybe some scent games in the garden, or like a short tug and drop game to satisfy those breed instincts if it's relevant to your dog. You have to remember with this one, it's not about pushing hard to wear them out. It's not exhaustion that we want to achieve. It's about giving the nervous system just a healthy outlet. And then after that, we start to guide the body and brain towards rest, probably in much the same way we do for ourselves at the end of a long day, right? So you can dim the lights, you can pop on like some chill out background music that's going to muffle any triggering or like arousal inducing noises from the street outside, any of the neighborhood dogs barking or like children or whatever is going on outside that might trigger your dog. These are predictable cues that tell our dogs and make it clear to them which portion of the day we are now heading into. And then we can just introduce a calm activity like a long lasting chew, a frozen Kong, a frozen licky mat. And then our dogs are occupied. They're not looking for ways to busy themselves, but they are occupied with something that is going to bring the nervous system down rather than ramp it up. Now, I think being actively strategic with the way we design our dog's day like this is how we are ultimately going to achieve the evenings that we want and create long term change. And I think considering the neuroscience of calm and how we get there is going to really help us as well. So let's talk a little bit about the brain now. In case this is the first episode you've ever listened to, and you've never heard me wax lyrical about all of this kind of stuff before, we'll talk about the brain a bit. Okay. So, when a dog is calm and relaxed, they are operating primarily through the parasympathetic nervous system. That's like the rest and digest state of being. Now, this is the counterpart to the sympathetic nervous system, which drives the fight or flight response or active alertness, like Captain Panic, right? And every time your dog practices calmness, so settling on a mat, chewing something quietly, just engaging in like a really slow, sniffy activity, they are literally strengthening the neural pathways associated with parasympathetic dominance so that over time, calmness becomes not just a behavior, but a neural habit. So you can think of it like this, right? The more often we invite the brain, the dog's brain, into calmness, the easier it becomes for the dog to find that state again later on for themselves. It's neuroplasticity in action. And that's why the environment matters so much. Loud TVs, constant movement, people running around screaming, unpredictable routines, they can all trigger micro stress responses. Whereas soft lighting, routine, really predictable routine, and calm human behavior all act like cues for safety and relaxation and down regulation to your dog's nervous system. And this is also why play and training are such powerful tools, too, right? Because they let the dog express energy in a safe, contained way and then return to that baseline really smoothly, which is absolutely what we're trying to achieve here. So, what can we train that directly supports that calm evening that we want? Well, firstly, settling, but not the kind of settle where we just expect the dog to lie down, do nothing for hours, because true relaxation training is about helping the dog to access calm, not like forcing it physically. So we can use calm reinforcement, gentle stroking, quiet praise, um, low key food, like delivered really slowly to build an association that calmness is rewarding. Secondly, boundary games or place training can be amazing here as well because teaching your dog that their bed or their mat or whatever the designated space is, maybe it's a crate, teaching them that that space is a safe, consistent resting spot helps them to self regulate. You can think of it as like the equivalent of a human being having, like, you have your favorite cozy reading corner or your favorite blanket that you always get under, or like your favorite armchair in the living room, something like that. You know what I mean? Thirdly, we can use what I call transitional cues. So these are simple, predictable signals that tell your dog that the tone of the environment is changing. For example, just turning off the overhead light and putting a little side lamp on, or saying a consistent cue, when you guys settle down for the evening, like, that'll do. Okay, then, whatever it is, pick a cue and use it consistently because dogs thrive on patterns and predictability. And when the environment gives them consistent feedback about what's coming next, their nervous system learns to downshift far more easily and automatically. So let's talk about your home itself, right? I often say that calm dogs live in calm environments, and that doesn't necessarily mean that it's all quiet and there's nothing happening at home, but it does mean that the home is predictable. So try to think of your living space as an emotional ecosystem. If the evening energy in your home is rushed and noisy and filled with screens and movement, your dog will mirror that because dogs are emotional sponges. But the beauty of that is you can use environmental management to your advantage. So you could try just adding baby gates or playpens to create resting zones, or make sure there's a designated wind down space where your dog can choose calm without it being interrupted. And your dog knows it won't be interrupted because that's part of the routine at home. That space is not where the kids play on their PlayStation or whatever it is. And if you live with multiple dogs, make sure each one has an individual area to decompress, because overstimulation from social pressure is actually a really common cause of evening restlessness. So many multi dog households struggle with this problem so much more because of this. Now, I want to make sure I address exercise here as well, because I want to touch on something slightly counterintuitive, and that is the idea that more exercise equals a calmer dog. But let me caveat what I'm about to go on to say right at the beginning with this, right? Yes, your dog needs exercise. They need enough appropriate exercise for their breed. It's critical. I am not saying delete exercise from your dog's routine. Absolutely not. Physical activity is very important, but too much of the wrong kind can actually increase adrenaline levels and make it harder for your dog to relax at the end of the day. So think of dogs who do like a high speed ball chase every day. That activity floods their system with adrenaline and dopamine. They get addicted to that rush. So when evening comes and those neurochemicals start to drop, the body almost panics. Like, it's a kind of behavioral withdrawal, right? And the solution isn't more adrenaline, it's more balance. So combine bursts of movement with activities that encourage parasympathetic activation, sniffing, chewing, thoughtful problem solving, slow foraging. And if you're stuck for ideas, there are loads of video tutorials on my Instagram for scent work games or training activities that tick all of these boxes. Or you can check out my downloadable resources and courses at listendogtraining.com. Just please don't think that back-to-back repetitions of fetch is your solution to this problem, because long term, it really, really isn't. A calm evening most definitely starts with a well balanced day. The other thing it's really important to remember is the role that we play in all of this, because dogs co regulate with us. Their nervous systems literally attuned to ours. I've done a whole episode that talks about how this works and why it happens. So go back and have a listen if you're interested in the details of that. But essentially, if we come home stressed, busy, we're rushing to make dinner, we're still half in work mode, we're panicking about emails pinging through, our dogs feel that. So, one of the most powerful things you can do to help your dog out is actually build your own calming ritual into your day for you as well. Maybe it's just taking a few deep breaths before you get out of your car and come into your house. Just, 2 minutes of breath work before you engage with your dog. Coming in and putting on some relaxing music, or just moving slowly and mindfully as you transition yourself into your evening routine. The calmer we are, the safer our dogs feel, and safety is the gateway to relaxation. So, to create that beautiful, relaxed evening atmosphere, think of it as a whole system approach, okay? First of all, you need to meet your dog's core needs, and that's not just physically, but emotionally and cognitively as well. Give them structure and predictability throughout the day, and use late afternoon play or training to release energy constructively and thoughtfully, not just frantically. And remember to create calm cues and environments that signal safety. And like I just said, manage your energy too, because your dog's calm starts with your calm. And ultimately, when we get all of this stuff right, we end up with a dog who not only behaves better, but they feel better. And a dog whose body and brain knows how to rest. And we all want a bit more of this in our lives, don't we? Especially, now as the nights draw in and our evenings are getting longer and darker, and we just want to snuggle up under a blanket and like really have some chill. Maybe that's just me. I don't know. I'm like shopping on the Udi website for all of the thick blankets. I'm lighting the candles. I'm full in my what is it called? Hygge. I'm fully embracing that this winter season. Anyway, I really hope you found today's episode useful and there's some nuggets of gold in there that you think you can take away and try and implement in your own routine that will hopefully steer you and your dog towards calmer, cozier evenings together. I am now going to love you and leave you to enjoy the rest of your walk now, or whatever it is you're up to. If you did find this episode useful, I would love it. And I would love you if you took 3 seconds just to leave a review or share it with a friend, or even share it on your Instagram stories and tag me. If I see it, I will reshare it. In the meantime, enjoy the rest of your day with your dog, and I will see you same time next week for another episode of The Walk and Talk.